Chapter 2181. The show was overly dramatic. Gu Shijio did not know what to say. Difui kept referring to her as his baby. However, she was also well aware that the man had many weird but practical ideas. Unlike her, the things that she could remember were limited to the events that she had been through over the past 6 months and nothing more. Hence, she thought that she should listen to him more often. Thus, she agreed with him. Nonetheless, she had to tell him how the man in the fluttering robes made her feel. I did not know why, but I did not like him very much. She found him a little annoying, yet in a familiar fashion. She tried hard to suppress her impulse to take the man down and give him a hard punch. What a coincidence! I do not like him very much, either. Baby, you and I are really meant to be together. Even our thoughts are in sync, Difui answered with a delightful smile. Meanwhile, he could not help but pinch her palm gently. When you're sweet-talking. Gu Shijio made fun of him, when in fact she enjoyed his attention. She also thought that they were very compatible. She then fixed her eyes on their hands that were interlocked in a tight grip. It was heartwarming, like they had been doing this for many years. She would very much like to hold his hand for the rest of their lives. Therefore, they held their hands and watched the man as he continued to make his grand entrance. The man on the ship finally stood up. With a leap, he slid down the stripe that was waving in the wind. His purple robes were loose, so the soft fabrics danced in the air as he slowly made his way down, like a flag ruffling in the breeze. He looked somewhat elegant and unconventional. In the blink of an eye, he landed safely. However, instead of landing on the ground, he decided to step onto the backs of the 4 young men, who were still kneeling with their heads down. Gu Shijio could finally see the man's face clearly and was surprised. The man had a handsome face with delicate features. His eyebrows were shaped in a perfect arch, complementing his big, bright eyes. He had an attractive smile on his face, and his skin was soft and supple, fairer than any man should possibly be. On his forehead, he was wearing a headband in the shape of a fox's eye. His was as beautiful as a lady, in fact. There was a soft feminine quality in his appearance. The man was the governor, also known as Yiling. After he landed, the 8 ladies subsequently got down from the floating ship. Quickly, they covered the ground with the petals before he stepped forward. Soon, all these ladies lay on the ground one by one, forming a line. Their white dresses formed a very strong contrast to the purple petals that glittered the land. From the back of the 4 young men, he took a step forward and stepped on the leg of the first lady in white. He slowly continued and stepped over her entire body. He then stepped onto the second lady, and the process continued. Gu Shijio was speechless. The show was overly dramatic. He did not respect these people at all. Despite her frustration, Gu Shijio still had a feeling that the governor was actually an impersonation of someone else with the same purple robes and fox eye headband. She was too sure that she knew the man. Yiling walked slowly towards the duo and stopped about 2 meters away from them. Suspiciously, he stared at them before questioning their identity. Are you the leaders of the villagers? I am one of the villagers, Gu Shijio answered in an icy tone. Yiling gave her a half-smile and said, You certainly do not look like one. Your appearance is clearly different from them. He then took another look at Difui and asked, Who is this? My fiancé. Gu Shijio answered him loudly and clearly. Yiling squinted his eyes in disbelief. He observed Difui thoroughly and was offended. Difui only stood casually, but the man seemed to possess a greater aura than he did, even in a casual posture. Chapter 2182. A warning to others. The stranger intimidated him. Governor, the city guard suddenly emerged and greeted him. He kneeled and bowed before Yiling again. Governor, you have to help me, he pleaded with eyes full of sympathy. Yiling was obviously puzzled. What is the problem? The guard immediately pointed at Gu Shijio and Difui and said, They are the ones. I was doing my duties according to the laws of Luo Hua City and forbade entry of the elders, the women, and the children. However, they decided to threaten me. He put a sword on my neck to make me open the gate. It almost cost my life. He then showed the bandage on his neck. The bandage was stained with blood and was quite a horrible sight. Yiling turned to look at the rest of the soldiers from the wall and questioned them. Is what he said true? The soldiers dared not tell any lies, so they all agreed. An eloquent man among the soldiers even described the entire scenario vividly to let the governor know what had really happened. Yi Ling listened attentively with a smile and never interrupted. When the man was finally done, he let out a sigh. Now, I know what happened. He gave the leader of the guard a wave and told him to come forward. Come here. Let me look at your wound. The guard approached him in a panic and quickly revealed the wound under the bandage. The wound was a sight of gore. Governor, please take a look at this. Indeed, the wound is quite severe. There was a sympathetic tone in the governor's voice. Exactly. Governor, please take revenge for me. On behalf of your cousin. The guard clenched his fist in indignation. Meanwhile, he gave Di Fui and Gu Shijio a look to show his satisfaction about the consequences that they were about to face. Gu Shijio avoided eye contact, but she was still worried. The people around the governor all possessed great kung fu. Even the worst one was at level 6. As a result of the governor's arrival, many soldiers had to secure the perimeter around him as a safety precaution. There were thousands of men standing quietly, just waiting for an order. Gu Shijio and the rest of the villagers were surrounded. If it were only Di Fui and Gu Shijio alone, they had absolutely nothing to worry about. In the worst-case scenario, they could just teleport. There was no chance that the soldiers could even reach them. However, they had to take care of the villagers who stood behind them. These people did not know enough kung fu to protect themselves. The helpless villagers were merely easy targets for the group of soldiers who possessed high levels of spiritual power. Gu Shijio was concerned about the governor's motive. If he intended to harm the villagers, she would teleport along with Di Fui to hold the governor captive. She maintained her composure, but secretly, she was all prepared. If anything went slightly wrong, she would make the first move. The villagers' safety was her most significant concern at the moment. Di Fui held her hand in a tight grasp, so he could certainly tell that she was sweating in nervousness. Don't worry, the guard is about to get very unlucky, he directed an audio to her. Just relax and watch the show. Di Fui gave her a tight smile, as if he already saw it coming. Yi Ling's fingers were gracefully thin with well-trimmed nails. All his nails were sharply shaped, like the nails of a woman. At this very moment, his fingers lingered across the wound on the guard's neck. The wound is deep enough to slash your aorta open, isn't it? Yes, it is a near miss. The guard was still frightened. Did you let them in because your life was threatened? Yi Ling continued. Chapter 2183. A warning to others, too. Yes, there was nothing I could do. We are very fortunate, Yi Ling sighed. Before the guard made any comment, he added, we are very fortunate that Miss Gu and her followers are here to seek refuge. Just imagine the consequence if they were the enemies and you opened the gate for them. Would you risk everybody else's life in the city just because your life was threatened? The guard did not know what to answer. My cousin, he stammered. Intuitively, he felt threatened and was ready to get away from Yi Ling's reach. However, Yi Ling's fingers never left his neck. He failed to escape Yi Ling's grasp. Instead, his sudden retreat allowed Yi Ling to bury his sharp nails deeply into his wound. The wound burst open, with blood flowing all over Yi Ling's fingers. However, he did not take his fingers out of the wound. Instead, he buried his nails even deeper. The guard was terrified and in pain. Panic filled his eyes. My cousin brother, please spare my life on Madame Yun's behalf, he pleaded. After that, he could not speak of another word. The nails finally penetrated through the aorta on his neck and reached the airway in his throat, thus blocking air from reaching the lungs. The guard gasped for air, but still could not breathe. Yi Ling took his hand back and let the guard fall to the ground. Blood flowed out of the wound continuously. He was about to die, for sure. Soon, he was dead on the ground with his eyes wide open, seemingly in disbelief that his own cousin brother would sentence him to death in such a brutal way. The soldiers were not expecting this sight of gore. They held their breaths in utter shock. There was dead silence in a plaza filled with thousands of people. Not a single sound was made. Yi Ling slowly wiped the blood away on one of the lady's dresses. He then put his fingers into the lattice mouth and demanded, "Clean this for me. I get dizzy when I see blood." The lady did not answer. She did as told and cleaned his finger with her mouth full of saliva. A few moments later, Yi Ling took his fingers back and observed them under the light. His nails were as clean as before without any traces of blood. He took a look at the people and sighed. There is no place in the city for this man, who cared for nothing but saving his own life. Although he was my beloved cousin, I had to sentence him to death for violating the law. He took another look at the dead body and shook his head in disapproval. He was, after all, my cousin. I cared for him the most, but what he did was really unexpected. I was truly heartbroken, but still, I had to uphold the importance of our laws. There was no choice for me. With his death, all his mistakes shall be redeemed. Send some men to give him a grand funeral. Yes, sir. The 4 men approached and carried the body away. Yi Ling blew his fingers dry before taking another look at the people. Remember, you may lose your life, but never your integrity. Are you clear? Yes, Governor. The law should not be taken lightly. The people answered in unison while trembling in fear. They knew how well Yi Ling used to treat the guard. If he was not afraid to severely punish someone he cared about, the rest of the people were going to be treated the same as well, if not worse. Gu Shijio seemed impressed by what she had witnessed. Her facial expression certainly seemed to suggest so. The newcomers looked at each other, not knowing what to do. They were anxious about their safety since the governor seemed like such a ruthless man. The laws of Luo Hua City forbade elders, women, and children from coming into the city. After the guard's death sentence, would they be sent away for breaching the law? Chapter 2184. Felt as though his eyes lurking at her like a predator, Gu Shijio quickly looked at the sky and realized that it was still raining blood. Intuitively, she gripped her sword tightly in her hand. Lady, please do not panic. Although the laws must not be taken lightly, I was the one who made the laws. Certainly, there are ways that I can negotiate with you. Gu Shijio was perplexed. How? Yi Ling looked at her smilingly and seductively. If you manage to get a Class 1 spiritual crystal, I will make the decision to let all of you stay. Gu Shijio was surprised by the offer. It was certainly achievable and rather simple. With a sigh, she agreed. Okay. She and Di Fui had found a Class 1 spiritual crystal before, but they had completely absorbed its power. Otherwise, she could have satisfied his request immediately. She looked up and saw Yi Ling's intense eyes staring at her. Gu Shijio felt as though his eyes were lurking at her like a predator. She looked him straight in the eye and said, Governor, are you going to send us to hunt for the Class 1 spiritual crystal now? Of course not. Yi Ling gave her a warm smile. You can wait until the rain stops. As long as you can get the crystal back within 3 days, it is fine. You and the gentlemen here look like people of great talents. I am a man who appreciates the talents of others. He flicked his finger to summon his men. Clear out the residential area around the south and let these people stay there. After all that they have been through, they must be exhausted. Yes, Governor. His men attended to his order quickly. Gu Shijio was certainly not expecting for him to grant them a chance of survival. Perhaps the man really did appreciate talents very much. In fact, the man was found to be less annoying than she thought he would be, so she thanked the governor for his kindness. Yi Ling gave her another gentle look in the eye and said lovingly, You are welcome, Miss Gu. Should you require my help, you can look for me at Fongy Cottage. He turned and stepped onto the ladies' bodies to return to where the ship docked. Summon the ship, he said lazily. The ship that had been hanging around in the air approached him slowly. Yi Ling took out an umbrella and spun the handle around with his palm. The umbrella started spinning and carried him up to the ship that was floating in the air. He had a great body. So many of his actions were found to be very extraordinary to the ordinary people. They would cheer for him no matter what he did. Usually, the ladies could hardly keep their eyes off him. After he landed, he took a seat at the front and looked at the people from above. Quietly, he was trying to enjoy the ladies' attention. To his dismay, the ladies were not attracted to him this time. They were all looking at the man in purple robes standing next to Gu Shijio. Yi Ling then took a look at his own robes that were decorated with many complex patterns. Silver threads were used to embroider the smooth patterns of a wave. On top of the wavy patterns, there was another piece of embroidery depicting the lively shape of a dragon. It was obviously of the finest quality. He chose the best embroidery to match with the best fabrics. Every time he put on his robes, he felt like a king who was overlooking his kingdom. He also thought that he was the only one who could carry the color purple. Any other man with the same purple robes looked just like a failed impersonation. Others were definitely not born with the same grace as his, so he never actually forbade the use of purple robes among the common people. If others wore the same color as him, he would still be the attractive one. To his surprise, the stranger in purple robes replaced him as the center of attention. The purple robes that the man was wearing did not showcase any complex embroidery patterns. Instead, it was merely loose and comfortable clothing. However, the man was able to carry the style very well. The color of the fabric was as bright as the beautiful tones of the dusking sky. It matched the man very well, as if he was born to wear it. When Yiling stood before him, he felt as if an impersonation of the man. The feeling made him very uncomfortable. After all, he was the governor of the entire city. The man was totally incomparable to him. He had tried very hard to showcase his power as a governor. He thought that he had successfully outshone the man with his charm, but the current situation had proven otherwise. Carefully, he observed Yi Fui with squinted eyes. An overwhelming sense of insecurity started to haunt him. If he could control the man, there was always a way to put the man to great use. If not, he would try every way to get rid of him. A sudden idea occurred to him. He leaned down from the edge of the ship and looked at the clan leader. I heard that someone claimed to be the son of the previous governor. Could that be you? The clan leader's face turned pale. Hesitantly, he answered it was. Yiling gave him another smile and said, "After a century, I'm sure that things are not how they used to be anymore. Am I right? Especially the position of the governor." Hua Jichun gave him another look of disappointment before agreeing to him. Yes. Yiling was satisfied. Sarcastically, he responded with a tone of delight. "Regardless of your identity, I will show you some respect for the sake of Miss Gu. I now grant you the gift of the Feng Shui Temple in the southern part of the city." Hua Jichun did not know what to answer, so he kept silent. Finally, Yiling left with his ship. The sky was still pouring drops of blood. Occasionally, bloody red bats appeared to be diving from the sky and fell onto the grayish wizardry barrier before bouncing off. The sound of heavy raindrops was indeed very distracting. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. The rain was something really normal for the people here, though. Some of them had been living in the city for years, so they were not concerned about it. Their lives continued undistracted. However, for the villagers who had just escaped from the valley, it was their first time witnessing such a strange occurrence. Many of them found it very frightening. Tai Dan made his way to Gu Shijio and asked, "Brother Stone, do you think that the bats are powerful?" Gu Shijio answered him, smilingly, "Why don't you go out there and fight them?" Tai Dan touched his nose awkwardly and kept his mouth shut. Somehow, he felt that Brother Stone had been quite sarcastic recently. She must have acquired the sarcastic trait from her fiancé. He could not help glare at Di Fui angrily. No matter where they went, the man would always walk gracefully next to Gu Shijio. He had certainly attracted much attention from the ladies. After their arrival in the city, Tai Dan also noticed that many people were not as tanned as they were. Many citizens were quite fair-skinned, especially the people of the highest social class in the city. They dressed in exquisite clothing that complemented their light complexion. Even the complexion of the governor was very fair. People would take notice of his high position in the lap of luxury very easily. He did not know that men could actually be so fair-skinned. Moreover, the ladies seemed to prefer men with a lighter complexion. Disappointed, Tai Dan knew that the villagers were very tanned as compared to the people from the city. Along the way, the citizens looked at them as if a group of uncivilized people. He took a look at the clan leader and noticed the lack of joy from his expression. He did not seem very happy to return home. Instead, he looked concerned. "Clan leader, Are you not happy? Deeply absorbed in his thoughts, the clan leader did not notice the question. Tai Dan had to repeat the question twice to get his attention. I am happy. He forced a smile. He looked around and sighed before continuing. After all, this is where I was born. They passed by a huge mansion on their way. Hesitantly, the clan leader paused to look inside. The greenish copper gate was wide open, and there was a wall made with many bricks of green jade. On the wall, there was a painting depicting a large bird that appeared to be extending its wings in flight. The mansion was obviously occupied. When the clan leader paused to look inside, the 4 guards at the gate quickly dismissed him. Go away. Go away. This is the residence of the general. It is not meant for people like you. The clan leader did not know what to say. Quietly, he took a few quick steps to catch up with the rest of the villagers. Gu Shijio and Di Fui were walking behind the rest of the group. Seeing the clan leader walking away at a fast pace gave Gu Shijio a sense of bewilderment. Furthermore, the so-called residential area on the southern part of the city was more like a slum. Shabby tents were raised right next to one another. At the entrance, many things were placed in a mess. The people there appeared to be dirty and unkempt. The leader of the soldiers guided them all the way to the core of this heavy populated area and pointed at 30 vacant tents. The governor is kind enough to have granted you these places to live. You have to learn to appreciate his kindness by working hard and working well. The villagers agreed, and soon the soldiers left them alone. Chun Chao looked at the small and shabby tents and was unhappy. These broken houses are not even as good as the ones we once had. Tainyo agreed with a frown. I highly doubt that I can stand up straight in these tents. A man emerged from the tent beside and heard their conversation. Be grateful for what you have. At least you have a place to stay. Many people in the city sleep in the bushes without a roof. The villagers looked at each other, not knowing what to say. Along their way, they had indeed seen some people sleeping in the streets. The city is in such a state of poverty, Chun Chao commented. The city is not. We are the ones in poverty, the man hissed to express his disapproval. He shook his head and quickly entered his tent as if he had just said something he should not have said. Soon, the man re-emerged in a hurry. Where are you going? Chun Chao was curious. To work. Do you really have to work at this hour? It was already time for dinner. The man did not even look back at her, but he did reply. People like us are only entitled to sleep for 3 hours a day. We have to work, if not eat, for the rest of the day. Where should we eat? Do we make our own food? The villagers were famished. They would love to try the food in the city. The man stopped and answered her in all seriousness. We are not allowed to cook our own food. Cooking is only allowed in the kitchen owned by people with the ranking of commanding officer and above. People like us can only get our food from the canteen. Do you have Luo Hua tickets? You need Luo Hua tickets to buy food from the canteen. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. The villagers were obviously surprised. They looked at one another helplessly. The man heaved a sigh and took out a crumpled ticket from his pocket. Here you go. This is the ticket for the common people. If you work a full day, you will receive a ticket. The clan leader took it to observe it carefully. The ticket looked somewhat like a piece of banknote. On the ticket, there was a 500 printed on it. How many things can you buy with this ticket? How many things? The man was disappointed. You can only get 3 buns, 3 bowls of porridge, and 2 dishes of pickles. Chapter 2187. Was he trying to humiliate him? So little? How can we be full? You expect to be full? You have very high expectations about this place. It is enough to keep you alive to work. You have just come here, so there will not be any tickets for you. You have to work to stay alive. All right, I really need to go to work. Otherwise, they will deduct my money, the man explained in a hurry. The villagers were disappointed, but were too tired to care. 3 or 4 of them had to share a tent, so they placed themselves into small groups and entered their respective tents. The interior was yet another disappointment. The base of the tent was roughly arranged with rows of stones. There was only a thin layer of blanket that looked filthy and uncomfortable. The tent was hot and stuffy and was filled with a strange smell. Luckily, They were highly adaptable to that sort of lifestyle. Although they were disappointed, they could still accept it. Even without Luo Hua tickets to buy food, they still had some leftovers of dried meat to keep their stomachs filled. They gathered around and were ready to share their food with everybody else like how they used to. However, a few soldiers approached and warned sternly, "You are not allowed to share your food in a group. If you do, I will arrest all of you for attempting to create social disorder." The villagers were utterly shocked, but could only suppress their anger. Chun Chao stayed with the clan leader and could not help but express her disappointment. Is this the city life? The living condition is nothing better than what we had in the valley. Grandpa, this place is nothing like the one you shared with us in your stories. The clan leader shook his head, too. It was not like this. There was not a man in poverty. The common people all had a place to stay. Maybe not many people could afford to have fancy dishes every day, but they were certainly not hungry. The clan leader's only hope was to guide the villagers out of their sufferings. He wanted all of them to have a peaceful life with plenty of food and warm clothes. Surprisingly, the living condition in the city was even worse than in the valley. The clan leader regretted his decision. Frustrated, he looked at a distant building with his fists clenched. The clan leader was assigned to live in the temple all by himself. It was not spacious, but comfortable enough for one person. It used to be a place for the nuns to carry out their spiritual practice, but is now a temporary home for the clan leader. The decorations remained unchanged even after a century. The clan leader stood in the yard and stared blankly into the distance. Did the governor make the arrangement on purpose? Was he trying to humiliate him? "It is a case of a scoundrel realizing his ambition," he said. "Clan leader, which scoundrel do you mean?" The clan leader was surprised by Gu Zijia's sudden emergence. He sighed without giving her a clear answer. "Are you concerned about anything?" Nothing. Have you known the governor for a long time?" "About that. Don't you trust me?" "No, Shijio. I trust you." The clan leader finally confessed. "Shijio, I suspect that the current governor used to be my child servant. You knew?" Gu Shijio did not answer. "He looks more or less like the child I used to know. However, their auras are different. His arrangement for me to stay in the temple seems like an act of revenge." Gu Shijio sat down on a stool and was ready for a long talk. "Let's talk about it. Did you abuse your servant? You knew?" "No, I treated him well." Chapter 2188. She always knew what others were thinking when Hua Jichuan was still living in the city as the son of the governor. He once saved a child beggar who was almost frozen to death right at the gate of the Feng Shui temple. The child was smart enough to seize the opportunity and asked for a chance to be his servant. In order to persuade Hua Jichuan, he even changed his name to Yi Nu to prove his loyalty to Hua Jichuan. Hua Jichuan agreed to keep the child servant. To the child's benefit, Hua Jichuan had always been very kind to his servants. He never tortured them or gave them a hard time. As for Yi Nu, he treated him especially well, like a brother of his own. Whenever there was something good to eat or to see, he would keep some for the child or invite him over. He would usually take Yi Nu along wherever he went. The old governor was not happy about it, so he often reprimanded Hua Jichuan over his attention for the child. He could see that Yi Nu harbored evil intentions, so it would be best if Hua Jichuan could stay away from child. However, Hua Jichuan never paid attention. After that, Hua Jichuan went for a hunting trip. He wanted to bring Yi Nu along, but Yi Nu had to run some errands for the old governor, so he missed the trip. The trip lasted for a century, and Hua Jichuan finally returned to a completely new environment. Yi Nu's pinky finger is shorter than normal, so it would be easy to identify him. However, the Governor Yi that we met was wearing gloves, so I could not see his pinky finger. Hua Jichuan sighed. If it is really him, I really do not understand why he is doing this to me. I never mistreated him back in those days. If they are not the same person, then perhaps it is just a coincidence that they seem the same. Hua Jichuan could not decide. Gu Shijio thought about it for a moment. "How young is he, as compared to you?" she suddenly asked. "Not much younger, only 5 years. When I found him, he was 8 and I was 13. For 6 years as my servant, I had always treated him like my brother. Never had I seen him as a servant. Perhaps Yi Ling is not Yi Nu. Maybe they only look a little alike. There are no reasons that he should treat me this way. Gu Shijio tapped the table gently while contemplating. There is nothing strange about this matter. If he really is Inu, he definitely wants to erase all the dark moments in his life to maintain his social credibility as the governor, which is why he does not want to see you. The best way to erase all history was to wipe out anyone who knew about it. Knowing Inu as a man who harbored evil intentions, there was a high possibility that he would kill Hua Jichuan. Perhaps the purpose of his arrangement to stay alone in the temple was to murder him. Gu Shijio took a look at the clan leader, who was still confused. She shook her head. The clan leader had been living in the remote valley for too long. Every day was about hunting and sharing the food together with everybody else. His social life was very simple, so he became a little naive. He forgot that people change. The outside world was far more complicated than he thought. Deceit and dishonesty were too common. Fortunately, Gu Shijio still had her sharp instincts. She always knew what others were thinking. Gu Shijio was rather happy with how she had put everything together, but suddenly she paused to contemplate. How did she link everything up so quickly? What kind of person had she always been? She was suddenly curious about her past. A voice interrupted her thoughts. Is Miss Gu here? The governor would like to invite you to see him. Gu Shijio was bewildered. Why did the ladyboy suddenly invite her? Was he trying to make her leave so that he could carry out his evil plans? Was he going to send his men to murder the clan leader? After some thought, Gu Shijio left the vicinity. She did not immediately go with the soldiers, however. Instead, she went to see Zhao Fengxing and his men to ask for their secret protection of the clan leader in the temple. Zhao Fengxing agreed, so she left. She wanted to ask Di Fui for help, but he already left the city center to find out more information about the place. He had not come back yet. Knowing that she was about to attend to the invitation, Zhao Fengxing was worried for her safety. Shijio, I will go with you, he offered. The governor seemed like an evil man, so he was worried that Gu Shijio might be harmed. Nonetheless, Gu Shijio rejected his kind offer. Don't worry, I can go by myself. She could not risk offending the man. After all, she needed to make sure that the villagers had a place to stay, so she had to respond to his invitation. Her kung fu was not as good as the governor, but she could teleport. Also, she was not afraid of any poisons. Therefore, she was not too concerned. At that moment, she wanted to find out if Yiling was really Yinu. The place was well furnished with jade pieces everywhere that had gold finishing. Scrumptious food was filled at every corner of the table. The place that Yiling invited her to go to was a very luxurious restaurant. The waiters of the restaurant were wearing formal clothes. Additionally, they appear to possess great kung fu as well. As compared to the people who lived in poverty in the outskirts, the life of these waiters could be considered as moderately high standards of living. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. Yiling had to show Gu Shijio his sincerity by ordering all the good food that was rarely available, filling the entire table. When Gu Shijio finally saw Yiling, he was leaning lazily on the railing. Behind him, two beautiful women were busy messaging and fanning him to keep him comfortable. His purple robes shone brightly under the light of the luminous night pearl. Under the glowing light, the dragon embroidery on his robes appeared lively. His dark hair hung loosely, and the fox's eye on his headband shimmered with a flash of red. He rose to acknowledge her arrival, smilingly. There was a sense of evilness in his smile. Miss Gu, I thought that you would bring some men along with you. Please sit. Gu Shijio sat down across the table and responded politely. Governor, you have only invited me alone, haven't you? How can I bring others with me? Yiling was impressed. Not bad, Miss Gu. You are indeed confident. Gu Shijio answered with a tight smile. Why did you request to see me? Is there anything that I can help you with? Yiling let out a chuckle. There is nothing to help. I am curious about you, so we are only here to talk. Gu Shijio was a good strategist, so she did not mind such an invitation. Yiling treated her politely, but with a sense of superiority. Perhaps he felt that he was above everyone else, as though he was the king of the world. He did not care about the lives of the common people at all. Yiling was seated opposite Gu Shijio and started talking with confidence and composure. He asked about the life of the villagers and where she and Di Fui came from. Gu Shijio did not answer his questions fully, nor did she tell him about their origins from the upper bound. The circumstance was unclear, so it was best that she played it safe. Under his authority, there were many things that she should not say. She was worried that he would use her words as his weapon. Before she came, she had figured out a series of well-thought answers to entertain his questions. Despite conversing for some time, Yiling still failed to extract any useful information from her. Initially, she thought that Yiling was insecure about her and Di Fui, and that she would be bombarded with questions about the two of them. Instead, she realized that he was more concerned about the life of the villagers. More accurately, he wanted to know more about the clan leader. Chapter 2190. Forced Marriage 2. Of course, the man was very skilled at asking his questions. If Gu Shijio was not sharp enough, she might not even know the main point of the conversation. They have been trapped in the valley for more than 100 years, and only the old patriarch is still alive. Gu Shijio nodded. Yes. Yiling turned the glass in his hand. He smirked and casually asked, "The few people who escaped this time are his children?" Gu Shijio looked closely at his fingertips and focused on his little finger. She replied, "No, he only has a son. Unfortunately, his son was killed by a beast." Yiling squinted his eyes. A faint cold light seemed to flash across his eyes. Oddly enough, he was smiling. He is a patriarch, but he still let his only son get killed. He is really useless. Does he argue with his wife? His wife has passed away. Gu Shijio had never seen her before, but the old patriarch said that his wife was a former maid. Yiling spun the cup in his hand again. "I see. Your patriarch is really unfortunate." Gu Shijio did not speak further, as she felt rather confused by the governor's reaction and responses. In short, he was somewhat strange. The two of them drank a few more cups of wine. Yiling would often stare at her intensely. However, all of a sudden, he let out a laugh. "Miss Gu and Mr. D don't look like people in our world." Gu Shijio smiled, but said nothing. Indeed, their appearance was different from the people in this city. The people here had deep eye sockets and a very tall nose. Although they had fair skin, it was not as pure as the two foreigners in the land. "Where do both of you come from? How did you get into the valley?" "We are just a couple of people who were affected by a natural disaster." "Why would you ask about our background?" "As for the valley, it just happened that we wandered around there." Yiling stared at her for a long while and suddenly let out a laugh. "There's a wizardry barrier in the valley, and it is difficult for outsiders to enter. I find it strange that two of you would end up there." Gu Shijio also laughed. "It seems that you are aware that there is a wizardry barrier that seals the valley. Have you been there before?" "I have passed by that area before when hunting. However, I didn't expect that there would be so many people trapped inside. It is even more unexpected for someone like you to be trapped there." Gu Shijio swayed the wine glass in her hand. "Everything is possible." Yiling suddenly sighed. "Miss Gu, actually you look like someone I know." Who do I look like?" "My wife." Gu Shijio was speechless. It was such a lousy trick to flirt with a girl. She smiled and said politely, "I am honored to look like her." She then raised her glass and toasted to Yiling. Yiling naturally would not refuse. Gu Shijio probably drank a lot of wine, so it was not unusual that she would put more force into the toast. She actually cracked Yiling's wine glass, and the wine sprayed onto his body. I am sorry." Gu Shijio apologized and took out a handkerchief to wipe his hand. When she wiped his hand, she also wiped the gloves that Yiling wore on his hand. Gu Shijio finally noticed something odd about the pinky finger on his right hand. Yiling's eyelids blinked uncontrollably. Everything seemed to have happened too quickly. "Miss Gu," he raised his hand and wanted to hold Gu Zijia's hand. However, Gu Shijio quietly withdrew her hand, so Yiling grabbed his own hand instead. Chapter 2191. Forced Marriage 3. He gently sighed. "Miss Gu is so beautiful. What is your plan for the future?" You should know that this city is not suitable for living. The majority of the people you brought in can only live at the lowest level in our city. Gu Shijie replied, I will do everything in my ability to make sure that does not happen. Yi Ling smiled. Miss Gus' ability is indeed powerful. Under the rules of Luo Hua City, you can get the post of general and get a big house with servants. However, it is only limited to both of you. In Luo Hua City, we have a strict hierarchy rule. Although you can get a house, the servants inside would be delegated by the city. You can't use your own people. Those villagers can't be your servants. They can only work according to the rules of Luo Hua City. In other words, the men from a village had to work hard under harsh conditions, while the women must be slaves or even prostitutes. Yiling looked at her with eyes as sharp as a knife. This is the rules of Luo Hua. Except for the owner of the city, no one can violate it. Gu Shijie bit her lips slightly and suddenly smiled. Although her skin was not in good condition, her facial features were still beautiful. When she smiled, it felt like how the flowers blossomed in the spring. What can you do to accommodate my requirement? Yiling looked at her with a pair of red phoenix eyes. Then he slowly said, Be my woman. Gu Shijie raised her eyebrows involuntarily. I will only fulfill a request from my woman. Gu Shijie remained silent. Wouldn't it be too cruel? What about your loyal subordinates? They have done so much for you. Do you not fulfill their requests? Yi Ling smirked. I only treat them like dogs. As long as he gave enough meat and bones, he would never be worried that they would rebel. Besides, no one could challenge him. Gu Shijie sighed. What you said can really break the hearts of your subordinates. If they pass the message out, Yi Ling interrupted. They won't pass it out. He looked back to the two women behind him. The two women were pale. They barely smiled to express their loyalty. My master, rest assured, we will never leak anything from the conversation out. Yi Ling smiled, raised his hand, and took 2 glasses of wine over. Good, these drinks are for you. The two women glanced at each other and did not dare to pick the glasses up. Yi Ling's face turned serious. What's the matter? This is a reward for your loyalty. Are you afraid that I will poison you? The two women immediately kneeled and said they did not dare to doubt their master. They both reached out and took the wine to drink. The two women's faces turned green and they died on the spot. Yi Ling did poison them, and it was the legendary poison referred to as die in 3 steps. It was not even 10 seconds after they had consumed the drink that the poison started to affect them. The two women fell to the ground and only had time to shout once. In the next second, they could no longer move. The poison was so potent that it was more effective than cutting someone's head off with a knife. It was such a poisonous drug that Gu Shijie could not help even if she wanted to. She was still sitting there, holding a glass of wine in her hand, but she had cold sweat all over. Yi Ling looked at her slightly pale face and smiled. He said softly, Only the dead will really keep secrets. I can only be assured by the dead. Gu Shijie raised her eyebrows again. Were they not your women? Yi Ling shook his head. Of course not. They're just slaves. There are fewer than 5 women who can be my lady. Shijie, you are one of them. What a bastard. Gu Zijie's fingers were secretly pinching a spell on her sleeve, but she still remained calm and composed. Thank you for your offer. Unfortunately, I already have a partner by my side, so I can't accept your good intention. Yi Ling disdained. You guys are still unmarried. Even if you cancel the marriage arrangement, no one would say anything. In this chaotic world, a woman should marry a good husband so that she can live comfortably. In my heart, he is the best candidate to be my husband. Gu Shijie interrupted him. Yi Ling was stunned. He sighed. Miss Gu, you will regret it. Gu Shijie stood up. I will never do anything that I will regret. If you don't have any other matters to discuss, I will need to excuse myself. She then turned to leave. I will give you 3 days to consider, Yi Ling added before she left. Gu Shijie did not turn back as she left the room. Yi Ling stood there, looking at her back slowly disappearing. He smirked as he whispered to himself, You will come back begging. His eyes narrowed, and he suddenly clapped his hands. Come, A shadow seemed to come down from the ceiling. Two people appeared in front of Yiling. They kneeled and asked, "Master, what is the order?" The blood rain was still pouring heavily. Gu Shijio was walking alone along the street. She was still considering what to do. Yiling was indeed the servant that the clan leader had in the past. According to the old patriarch, his servant was only relatively good in terms of his talent and skill. Even if he practiced for more than 100 years, he might not be able to reach a level 6 spiritual power. However, he was now at level 9. What had he done to have such a breakthrough? This person was indeed sinister, but would be considered as a formidable person. Despite being a lousy leader to the many heroes and talented masters that came to this city to take refuge, many of them were willing to abide by his rules. But why? He should have something unique in his hand, and that was why people let him be the city owner. What was he holding? A gust of wind passed by, and Gu Shijio suddenly felt a chill. She hugged her arms and contemplated that living in this place was far worse than the original village. Although she now had some spiritual power, it was only level 6 or 7. It was nothing compared to the other masters have resided here. Difui, on the other hand, had his spiritual power restored to a maximum of level 9, which was the same level as the city's owner. However, so many masters served the city's owner. Most of them were level 7 or 8. Thus, if it was not necessary, Gu Shijio did not want to cross the man, especially under the circumstance where she did not know the background of the city's owner. It would make things even worse if she had a face-to-face conflict with him. After rejecting his offer so bluntly, she was concerned that this man may lash out his anger on the innocent villagers. Gu Shijio had a headache thinking about the many possible outcomes. She massaged her eyebrows to relieve some of the pain. She had been using her brain a lot over the past few days, as compared to 6 months ago. God damn it! She did not want to care so much. If the city owner really did something unfavorable to the villagers, she would try to take the villagers out of the city to find a new home. According to what Zhao Fengxing had shared to her, there should be other cities that they could go to. All the owners of the various cities couldn't be as cruel and perverted as Yiling, right? Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. Unfortunately, it seemed that the nearest city was about 1,000 miles away. The interval between the blood rain was only 10 days. It would certainly be challenging to carry 100 people for 10 days unless she could find other temporary shelters to see out the blood rain. Would there be shelters along the way? She kicked a stone to the side of the road, and suddenly, there was a hand on her shoulder. "Baby, what are you thinking about? Why are you so frustrated?" Gu Shijio suddenly turned back and saw Difui standing behind her. He was smiling at her. Chapter 2193 treated him as her husband as it was already late at night. The lanterns decorating the nearby shops were at half their brightness. Difui stood in his dark robe that fluttered in the wind. The light drew a faint silhouette on him. He was not wearing a mask, and his smile felt like a spring breeze. Gu Zijia's heart naturally skipped a few beats. Although she was really close with him lately, and they seemed inseparable, she was still attracted by his handsome face. Every time he smiled at her, she would feel her heart pound in her chest. Earlier, Yiling had asked her what was so good about her fiancé and what made him better than Yiling. She just smiled and answered that they were both very different people, so it was unfair to make a comparison. However, looking at Difui now, she was reminded of the clear differences between them. Difui was elegant, and it came naturally to him. Yiling was nowhere near as graceful or charming. It was clear that he was putting on a show. "You are the most handsome person." Gu Shijio held Difui's hand and put her head on his shoulder. "No one can compare to you." Difui did not expect to be so enthusiastically praised. He felt that it was funny, but he was still happy to hear it. He raised his hand and caressed her hair. "Why have you said this all of a sudden? Perhaps no one could compare with him here, but what about Huang too?" Difui wanted to ask, but of course he would not do such a silly thing. Gu Shijio did not answer his question, but took his arm and walked side by side with him. She could not help but sigh. Phooey, how did I get you to be my man? He was so handsome and smart. On top of that, he was always kind to her. He was the perfect man to her, and she still could not believe that he was hers. She always thought that it was too good to be true. The person she loved was by her side, and she could be entirely dependent on him. There was no other man in her heart. Even though they were not officially married, she treated him as her husband. Even Di Fui felt as though he was dreaming. It was a sweet dream, indeed. Although the environment here was significantly worse compared to heaven, Di Fui did not hate this place. If he could be with her, there was a paradise for him. He secretly hoped to stay here for a few more days. Gu Shizhou suddenly remembered the old patriarch and was worried that he would be attacked, so she went to the hut to look for him. The old patriarch was still alive and well. This made Gu Shizhou heave a sigh of relief. She sat and talked to the old patriarch for a while. The old patriarch was also thinking about her, and he was relieved to see her alive. He could not help but ask, Shizhou, is the city owner my servant from before? Is he new? Gu Shizhou pondered for a moment before answering. She decided to tell him the truth. It should be him. The old patriarch sat in stunned silence. He did not want to believe it. Gu Shizhou understood his feeling. Anyone who faced the situation would wonder what went wrong. Chapter 2194. No one could replace him after the old patriarch had sat for a while. He suddenly stood up and wanted to go out to get some air. Are you going to find Yiling? I suppose you would want to ask him about your father? Di Fui was holding his arms and standing nearby. His two senses managed to stop the old patriarch for a second. Yes, since this matter had developed to this stage, Hua Jichuan wanted to know what happened to his father. Yinu definitely knew something about it. Do you think he will tell you? I just want to know the whereabouts of my father. I don't care about anything else. Just because you don't care, it doesn't mean that he doesn't care. If you go and find him, he will know that you recognize him. Since he used to be a slave, do you think he wants to let people know about his past? Do you think he will keep you alive until tomorrow? But there is nothing else to say. If you still want to live, then pretend that you do not recognize him. Stay here safely for a few days and look after your people. Regarding your father, I will help you investigate, and I will give you a fair explanation. Di Fui interrupted him. After the adventures over the past few days, the old patriarch had been extremely trusting in Di Fui. He tried to calm himself down. He was a smart man and fully understood Di Fui's intention. Yinu seemed to be a different man from the servant who was once loyal to him. Being reckless here would cost him his life. Once the clan leader was calmer, Di Fui shared the insights from his day. Gu Zijia's heart sank a little. There were now more than 100,000 people in this city, including 80,000 who lived in poverty. They were mostly servants who had to work for 15 to 16 hours a day, yet they did not have enough to eat and could not afford proper clothing. They lived in the slums. The rich in the city could merely scold and beat them. Even if they killed the poor, no one would dare to say anything. The other 20,000 people had spiritual power above level 3. Most of these people needed to go out and hunt beasts daily to get a spiritual crystal. Every time they went out, they needed to get at least one gem. Otherwise, they were not allowed to enter the city again. If someone was seriously injured outside, they might as well stay there, because Luo Hua City did not accept injured people. Those with level 4 spiritual power were soldiers. They would be given a house and have a better lifestyle than those less powerful than them. Those with level 6 of spiritual power would be the guards of the owner of the city. They would be given servants, beautiful women, and a mansion. They could live a luxurious life. All these people owned shops, and each of them was unique. It had both necessities and luxury goods for the people. As they were all monopolies, the prices were extremely high. Even with the savings earned after working for a month, the luxury items were still out of reach to the common people. There were many foreigners in the city these years. Many of them were high in spiritual power and were very capable. Of course, these people were unwilling to be the subordinate of the city's owner. Many of them wanted to replace him, especially because many people hated him. However, no one could touch him because he made the wizardry barrier that blocked the blood rain and bloodbaths. and no one else could replace it. Chapter 2195 will not give other men a chance to get close to you. If they killed him, the wizardry barrier would be broken, and the city would be abolished entirely once the blood rain poured. Of course, some people that reached level 9 spiritual power also studied the wizardry barrier and wanted to replace it. However, after studying it for a long time, they found that they could not replace it. Zhao Fengxing frowned. So, the city's owner cannot be killed? Di Fui replied, he can't be killed for now. Zhao Fengxing's eyes brightened. Mr. Di, you have a plan? Di Fui stood up and said, you have to be patient for a few days. Aside from preventing the women from being prostitutes, everyone must follow the city rules and make sure that Yiling does not catch any mistake. Everyone should follow my orders. Okay. Everyone listens to Mr. D. Gu Shijio sat next to him and sighed her heart. This man was born as a leader. He was like a mountain that gave the people around him infinite power and courage. As long as he was around, any storm or bad weather was not important. He was so influential that people would naturally still follow him. The two of them came out from the Fengxue hut, while Zhao Fengxing and the rest of 12 people sent to guard him stayed in the hut. They stayed here because it would be more convenient to take care of the old patriarch. Secondly, there were 3 empty rooms in this hut, and there were beds in the rooms. It was much better for them to stay here than outside in the tents. Originally, Gu Shijio also wanted to stay in one of the rooms. However, when she just expressed this thought, she was dragged out by Di Fui. It was already late at night, and the blood rain in the sky finally stopped. The bloodbaths were not in sight either. Therefore, the wizardry barrier on top of the city had been taken down. The city's people could now see the stars and the big round moon. It was a beautiful sight. The two walked side by side on the road. Sometimes the moonlight shortened their shadows. Other times it elongated them. Regardless of the length of their shadows, one thing was constant. They were never separated. What do we do now? Do you want to observe the house of the city's owner at night? No, we have to rest for tonight. Tomorrow, I will hunt for a spiritual crystal. I will go with you. Gu Shijio volunteered. Di Fui could not help but smile. Are you worried about me? The fierce beasts that possessed a first-grade crystal are too powerful. I think it would be safer for us to work together. Gu Shijio was indeed worried for him to go alone. It's all right. I already know their weakness and how to hunt them. There will be no accidents. You can stay in the city and take care of the villagers. If we both go out, I am afraid that Yiling will do something harmful to the villagers. That was true. Gu Shijio leaned on his arm and advised him. Then you be careful, okay? Of course. I will come back safely and will not give other men a chance to get close to you. Di Fui kissed her cheek, and his arm held her waist even tighter. Although the environment was still dangerous, Gu Shijio felt happy. She also looked up and kissed him on his cheek. I will wait for you. Di Fui was comforted by her response. It would be good if she continued to treat him this way, even after she gets back her memory. Chapter 2196. Do you want to be separated from me? If Gu Shijio regained her memory, it would be unlikely for her to treat Di Fui in the same manner. He would be lucky if she did not kill him. The two of them did share an intimate moment, and she really liked him now. Perhaps she would be able to calm down after some time. After all, Huang Tu had died, and he couldn't be resurrected. Hence, he could win her heart back. Although he could not participate in her past, he wanted to accompany her in her future. He did not care who she loved in the past. He only cared about her present. Gu Shijio walked together with him for a moment, and suddenly realized that this was not the way to the civilian area in the south of the city. She was somewhat shocked. Where are we going? Let's find a place to rest. But shouldn't we go to the civilian area? She remembered that the villagers left her a tent. I have found somewhere else. Gu Shijio remembered his beautiful white tent. Are we staying in the white tent? Where did you place it? No, my white tent is too eye-catching. I want to keep a low profile now. Let's go to the inn. Well, it was okay to stay in the inn. With Di Fui's fussiness, he would definitely not be used to staying in the humble homes in the civilian area. There were a snowy white wall, clean and luxurious table and chairs, and a light blue curtain. Instead of staying in an inn, it was more like a big house of the rich. Everything in it was the best quality. Even the curtains were as soft and silky as satin. Gu Shijio touched the soft bedding and could not believe it. The bedding here was brand new and had never been used. Something was not right. Staying in such a luxurious place was going to cost a lot, especially in this presidential suite-like room. Where did he get the money from? Gu Shijio asked him this question. Di Fui took her to sit down at the table and gave her a cup of warm milk. This inn is opened by a new friend of mine. We can live here before we leave the city and don't have to pay for it. Gu Shijio remained silent. He had wandered around for less than 2 hours. How did he manage to make such a friend? When she walked with him to this inn, she knew that it was not in the downtown area. It was located in a relatively quiet place. From the outside, this inn did not look outstanding. However, she never expected the interior to be so beautiful. The boss had greeted him face to face. He looked like a gentleman of noble status. Gu Shijio initially thought that the owners of all the shops here were bastards like the city's owner. Hence, she obviously did not expect the man to be so kind. It seemed that there were still good people in this city. As she thought the misconception, she subconsciously drank the milk in her hand and finished it unknowingly. Di Fui took away the cup in her hand. Okay, it's not early anymore. We have to rest early. Go take a bath now. There was a bathroom in the house with a big bathtub inside. It was already filled with hot water inside and ready for someone to use it. Gu Shijio suddenly came to her senses. Was it appropriate for them to stay together since they were still unmarried? She got up and decided to be more reserved. I don't have to sleep here, right? I should go back to the civilian area where I have a place to live. Di Fui grasped her wrist and smiled at her. Do you want to be separated from me? Chapter 2197. You have exposed yourself? Di Fui had exerted a good amount of force to pull her back. His ocean-like eyes wooed her into his embrace. Gu Zijia's heartbeat rapidly rose. Thus far, she only shared one intimate moment with Di Fui. After that, they had been busy moving around. Although they stayed together all the time and often fought side by side, there was no opportunity for them to share a moment together. It was evident what Di Fui's intentions were at that very moment, but Gu Shijio seemed to want to retreat. She was actually in pain the night they shared an intimate moment, especially when they were both connected. Furthermore, she had an uncontrollable feeling that night, which made her lose her mind. It made her very uncomfortable, especially with the uncertainty over her forgotten past. Gu Shijio was finding the right words to help her escape the situation without hurting his feelings. Good girl, go and take a bath. You have been traveling for the whole day. You stink. Di Fui raised his hand and touched her hair. Gu Shijio replied, It's not me that stinks, but you. I can smell you from here. She then deliberately rested her head on his shoulder and took a deep breath. So smelly. Di Fui pulled her to the bathroom. Then we should proceed to the bathroom together to freshen up. Were they really going to shower together? Gu Zijia's heart continued to pound her chest. She withdrew her arm. I don't want to bathe with you. Are you a badass? Di Fui turned and looked at her. What did you say about me? Where did you learn this word from? The word sounded foreign to Di Fui. How did she know about it? Gu Shijio was also stunned. She did not know how she came up with this word. It seemed to pop up naturally in her head earlier. Recently, a few things often flashed in her mind. She had a vision of meteor-like objects moving around in the sky. However, before she could see it clearly, they disappeared. After Di Fui brought up the topic of her past, she could not help but think about it. There seemed to be a picture that appeared in front of her. A cute little boy with soft skin was gazing at her awkwardly. He was almost naked. You are a woman, he said. A black-clothed, grimace person glanced at the boy and politely reminded him, You have exposed yourself. The little boy looked down and found that he was naked. His face instantly turned red. You badass. Just as the scene was getting more explicit in her mind, she looked up and suddenly found herself standing in the bathroom. Di Fui's fingers were already undressing her. What are you doing? Gu Shijio could not help but question. You call me as badass, right? I'm going to show you how badass I am. Di Fui was smiling as he said those words. Do you want to take off your clothes yourself? Or would you like me to take it off for you? He obviously did not understand Gu Zijia's current predicament. He thought that she was just shy. After his first experience with her, he had naturally wanted to do it together with her again. It was the most intimate thing between a husband and a wife. Seeing her actively pursue him during their first attempt, he thought she was very open in this matter. Perhaps he was mistaken. Eagerly, he pulled her back into his embrace. Perhaps you will like it more if I take off your clothes for you. Gu Shijio blushed. She did not expect this guy's face to be so thick. Nonetheless, when his warm breath blew on her face, it made half of her face hot. Instinctively, she stepped back, and suddenly, a scene appeared in front of her eyes. Chapter 2198. Wanted to bathe together, there was a simple wooden hut in the scene with a man and a woman inside it. The man seemed to be drenched in the rain for an entire night. His entire body was soaked. This scene was extremely vague. It was so blurred that Gu Shijio could not see the face of the man and the woman inside the hut. However, she could vaguely hear a dialogue. Why didn't you come to me? If I didn't look for you, you have let go of me, right? The male sounded sad. I didn't give up on you. I have looked for you. I thought you had left to continue your meditation. I had searched through the village. Anyway, please take off your clothes first. We can talk when you are dry. Okay? The woman wanted to take off his clothes. I'm very upset. It is so easy for you to let go. Take off your wet clothes first. The woman wanted to undress him, but the man seemed to be drunk and rejected her offer. After some entanglement, both of them kissed each other. No, Celestial Masters, Shijio, call me by my name? Silly girl, what are you doing? When Gu Shijio regained her consciousness, a hand had stretched out in front of her eyes. She was stunned, and the scene had disappeared entirely. Di Fui had taken off her skirt, and he probably wanted to take off her innerwear as well. However, he did not expect her to lose consciousness, so he tried to wake her up. Have we entered any village together before? Are you Celestial Masters, Wa? Di Fui went stiff. What? Did I used to call you Celestial Masters, Wa? Di Fui remained silent. He was worried that Gu Shijio would have regained her memory. Did you recall something? Gu Shijio was distressed, and she shook her head. It's just a vague scene. I couldn't see the face of the person in the scene. Even his voice was not clear. All I saw was a woman calling a man Celestial Masters. They seemed to be in love, and they wanted to bathe together. Di Fui's face was getting pale. He looked at her for a moment before he spoke. Well, don't think about those messy things. You should take a good shower first. He turned around and left. Gu Shijio was speechless. As she watched the man leave, she had a feeling that he seemed to hide many things from her. Given how Di Fui had reacted earlier, she expected him to peek at her when she was bathing. In fact, she even felt that he might secretly join her in the shower. She certainly did not expect him to be a gentleman. After bathing, she found that he was sitting in front of the table. His finger was tapping on the table, and he seemed to be lost in thought. He looked a bit sad, which made Gu Shijio feel bad. She actually knew that Di Fui wanted to have intimacy with her tonight. After all, they had done it before, so it was reasonable for him to expect to do it again. Perhaps she had rejected him too harshly earlier. Hey, she greeted him in a joyful tone. He finally turned, and his eyes stopped on her. She just came out from the shower, and she looked extraordinarily beautiful at this moment. Her eyes were watery, and her lips were moist. It was the perfect time to kiss her. Since you have finished bathing, you can rest now. We will be busy tomorrow. Di Fui then headed to the door. Gu Shijio was stunned. Where are you going? I will get another room from the owner. It is just next to this room. If there is anything, you could just knock on the wall. Di Fui opened the door and went out. Chapter 2199. He can do whatever he wants. She did not want to care anymore. Gu Shijio was stunned by his sudden change of behavior. Soon, she heard the door open next door. Apparently, he really went to the next room. Was he angry? Was it because of her earlier rejection? She listened carefully to try to ascertain what had happened. However, the sound insulation here was excellent, and almost no movement could be heard from next door. However, she suspected that he was taking a bath. She sighed softly and did not feel right. This person was too proud. He had completely changed his attitude because she rejected his approach. Was it somehow because of the questions she asked about the illusion she had? Although the picture in the illusion could not be seen clearly, she felt that it was the two of them in the scene. Unless the man in the dream was not him. But if the man were not Di Fui, perhaps he would at least have been more curious? Although she had no previous memories, she felt that she was not a flirty girl. She would never be intimate with any man that easily. She could see that she had been so close with the man in the illusion, so at the very least he was her fiancé. Could the illusion be just a dream? Or was Di Fui really another former fiancé? Had he come here to fool her and take advantage of her? No, Di Fui was not such a person. Although he was not always open and honest, he was definitely an outstanding man. There must be a lot of girls chasing after him wherever he went. Why would he waste so much effort to come and deceive her? Gu Shijio subconsciously looked at herself in the mirror. The girl in the mirror was beautiful, but she felt that there were more attractive women out there. After all, her skin was rough and wheat-colored at the moment. So why would Di Fui travel across the world just to find her? Things just did not make sense. Trying to distract herself from these thoughts, Gu Shijio sat on the bed and slowly dried her hair. She tried to listen to what Di Fui might be doing next door, but still did not hear anything. She then bit her lips and tapped the wall with her fingers. Knock, knock, knock. After a while, she heard a few knocks from the other side as well. Di Fui had recently taught her how to communicate using Morse code so that they could keep their conversations private. Earlier, Gu Shijio had asked him, "Are you sleeping?" And the few knocks he returned were, "Going to, I am sleepy." Apparently, he did not want to communicate with her anymore. Gu Shijio was rather unhappy with the turn of events. Was he too proud? Perhaps she shared the same sentiment. Frustrated, she covered herself with the quilt and tucked herself into bed. He can do whatever he wants. She did not want to care anymore. It had been a long day, and she was exhausted. She actually fell asleep in just a brief moment. It was late at night, but some people had not slept yet. City owner, Madam has asked you to go over. Yiling had just returned to his bedroom, and there was a report from the maid outside. Yiling knitted his eyebrows and rolled his eyes. He was impatient, but he still answered, "All right, I will go soon. Madam said that she wants to see you now." The maid did not give up. Yiling was obviously frustrated. He clenched his fists. "Fine, I will go now." Chapter 2200. Jealous? Are you qualified? Yiling got up and went to the backyard. Compared to the luxurious front yard, the style of the backyard was simple but elegant. The small building in the backyard was made with bricks. Along the pathway, there were green bamboos and a pavilion. There was a faint scent of herbs in the air. Two maids stood in front of the building. When they saw Yiling approaching, they bowed. "City Governor." Yiling nodded briefly in return. He pushed the door open and went into the building. Inside the building, there were dark purple curtains. Behind the purple curtains, he saw a woman dressed in white sitting on the bed. "Aluo, anything?" The white-dressed woman looked at him coldly and did not speak. She had a sort of cold temperament, which was mysterious and scary. Yiling did not dare to make a sound. Instead, he tried to smile. "What happened? Are you calling me here just to see me?" Shwa! The sleeves of the woman suddenly flew over and hit Yiling on the face. It was as if he got a massive slap. The woman finally said, "Yiling, you seem to have forgotten your identity." Yiling paused, raised his hand, and touched his cheek. "Aluo, I definitely remember my identity." He sounded like a young kid who was speaking to his parents with respect. "Why did you kill Lung Feng?" Lung Feng was the city's officer. Yiling sighed. "Lung Feng broke the rules of the city, and I was forced to do so." "Liar! I heard that you were trying to impress a woman." "There is no other woman in the world except you." "Aluo, you have wronged me." "Umph! You would know better if I had wronged you or not. Don't try to fool me." "Are you jealous?" "Jealous? Are you qualified for me to be jealous?" The woman spoke softly, but her words here sharp as a knife. Yiling sighed, but did not talk. The woman seemed to be somewhat intolerant today. She said coldly, "Yiling, don't forget your identity. The so-called husband and wife status is just a means to an end. You are just a slave in my eyes. All your powers and abilities are given to you by me. If you leave me, you'll have nothing. Yes, I understand. Yi Ling still looked down as he responded. You don't have to pretend to be so good in front of me. Do you think that I don't know what you have done outside? I just don't care about these things. As long as you don't delay my business, I will leave you in peace. However, today, you killed my people just because of girl? Are you looking for death? Don't you want to be the city's owner anymore? Yi Ling sighed. He now knew that his own affairs could not be hidden from her. He admitted what he had done. Aluo, I am just playing around. There is no other woman in my heart. Regarding the woman who entered the city today, I am not doing it out of my own lust. She has a strange capability. If we can pull her to be with us, she could be our right-hand man. It is so rare for you to praise people. It seems like the woman's ability should be outstanding. How good is she as compared to me? She is only level 6 or 7 in terms of spiritual power, so she definitely cannot be compared with you. However, her Qing Gong is very strange. Despite being hundreds of feet away, she can somehow travel at the speed of light. Chapter 2201. You can marry whoever you want. Seek. A cracking sound was heard as a piece of gauze in the woman's hand was torn into pieces. What is the name of the woman? Yi Ling replied. Her companions call her Stone. Stone? The woman in white was stunned. She grasped the gauze in hand tightly. How could someone so skilled carry such a bandit name? Yi Ling smiled. They come from the wilderness, so the name is naturally very down to earth. The rest are called Tai Dan, Tai Nyo, Chun Chao, and so on. Stone is the daughter of their patriarch. The woman frowned. What does she look like? She looks 18 or 19. She is pretty, and her skin is of a healthy wheat color. Why? Aluo, do you know her? Of the entire group, only the patriarch was born outside the valley. The white-dressed woman frowned again. A glimmer of light seemed to flash in her eyes. Was it just a coincidence? I heard that the old patriarch claimed to be the son of the former city owner Hua Jichuan. Yi Ling smirked. Many people have pretended to be him over the past few years. However, this man looks very old. His hair is all white, and his face is full of wrinkles. The woman in white faintly said, then this time it may be true. If Hua Jichuan were still alive, he would be almost 140 years old. If he does not have spiritual power to protect his body, he should look like this way. You better be careful. After all, his father died in your hands. Yi Ling did not care. I doubt that this old man is Hua Jichuan, but even if he is, what can he do? He's just an old man who is going to die. Just do not take him for granted. Aluo, are you trying to express care for me? Oh, don't think so much. I just don't want you to delay the big project. I see. Aluo, please be assured. I will live well and support the city. There will be no mistakes. That better be the case. You can go now. The white-dressed woman impolitely asked him to leave. Yi Ling got up and suddenly thought of something when he walked to the door. He said, there are 2 groups of people who came here today. There's a man in one of the groups, which is particularly powerful. He acquired the spiritual crystals for the entire group. This man is a little bit weird, but his martial arts seems to be very good. He will go hunting for a grade 1 spiritual crystal alone tomorrow morning. The woman was not interested. Good. When the master comes, our spiritual crystals will be more abundant. You should retain him well, and don't let such a talent go. I understand. Yi Ling turned and headed to the door. What does the man look like? He was wearing a mask, so I couldn't see his face. However, when he came, he wore a purple robe similar to mine. The white-dressed woman went stiff. What is his name? She seemed to speak louder than before. I don't know his name yet, but his companion called him Mr. D. The woman remained silent. Yi Ling waited for a moment, but did not get her response, so he said again, Aluo, I want to marry the woman named Stone. Can you? You can marry whoever you want. I don't care as long as you don't delay our big project. All right. Gu Shijio was probably too tired, so she slept till the next morning. As soon as Gu Shijio opened her eyes, she realized that she was dreaming just moments ago about going to heaven. She remembered that she was looking for someone. Also, there was something about a mission. She raised her head and rubbed her temples to calm herself down. Her intuition told her that those were her memories. Therefore, to get her memories back, she had to remember the dream. However, it was all scattered and too blurry for her to recall everything at once. Difui once told her that the time would come for her memories to come back to her. So, she should not pressure herself too much. Too much stress would not do anything good to her brain, anyway. Thus, she stopped trying. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. She rose and cleaned herself up. Then, she went and knocked on the door of the room beside hers. After a while, there was still no answer from the room. Puzzled, she could not help but wonder if he had left the city. Even if he had to go, Gushijio assumed that he would have told her about it first. She tried to push the door open by force, but it remained shut. Was he still resting in the room? "Miss Gu, are you looking for Mr. D?" Politely, the owner of the place approached her from the staircase. "Yes, he left before dusk. However, he did leave you a message before he went, asking you to take care of the people and that he would return in 3 days." She was not aware of his early departure. Certainly, she was not expecting him to leave so swiftly without even telling her. The door seems to be locked from the inside. Could there be an intruder in his room? Gushijio fixed her eyes at the locked door. Before Mr. D left, he made a reservation for these 2 rooms, one for you and another one for him. He must have placed some special mechanism on that door so that outsiders cannot go in. "There is nothing to worry about, miss," the owner reassured her. Gushijio heaved a sigh of relief. "I see. I was worried that someone might have invaded his room." Food was provided for Gushijio at the tavern. After breakfast, she returned to the place where the villagers stayed. As soon as she arrived, she realized that something was not right. Most of the villagers were absent. Only 3 people stayed behind. They were all elders. The 3 elders saw her coming and felt as if hope had returned to them. "Stone, you are finally here. Stone, please save the villagers." "What happened? Where are the others?" Gushijio suspected that something was terribly wrong. "This morning, a group of violent soldiers came and took our food away. They did not even leave any water supply for us. They told us to work if we wanted to live here. Otherwise, we have to leave Luo Hua City. The soldiers have taken our men to some kind of meeting for work, saying that they would be assigned with different tasks. Even the children had to go with them." Gushijio was puzzled, but not quite surprised about it. After all, there was no place for a jobless man in the city. Everyone had to contribute. It was unavoidable. What about Chun Chao and the girls? Gushijio was concerned about the girls. Not sure. They were taken together with the group. What was the most tiring job in Luo Hua City? It was to extract stones in the quarry. Every piece was in the shape of a big, green stone with ranging sizes from hundreds of kilograms to a ton. These stones were carried on the backs of the workers, sometimes alone, sometimes a few men together. The stones were required to restore any damaged walls or to build fancy new homes. Tai Dan, Tai Nyo, and their men were sent to the quarry early in the morning to carry out the worst job they could ever imagine. When Gushijio arrived at the quarry, she saw her people working tirelessly with a heavy burden on their bent backs. Sweat soaked their clothes thoroughly, and they trembled while taking each step. Chapter 22:03. The torturous whipping of other men did not bother them. The tasks were manageable for Tai Nyo and the men his age. They were still young and energetic. As for the people who were 60 and above, the weight of the stones had certainly become unbearable for them. They walked in a tottered manner. One careless step would shove their weak knees to the ground. Unfortunately, relentless supervisors guarded the place. They beat anyone who was slow, especially those who fell. Gushijio saw an old man struggling to get up from the ground. His knees were bleeding. Before he could get on his feet again, the supervisor started to hit him. He got hit in the face, and blood started oozing down his head. The old man got dizzy, so he fell to the ground once again. He groaned in pain with the weight on his back and spat a mouthful of blood. "Why are you acting? Get up now." The supervisor wanted to beat him again, but before he could move his whip, sharp pain at his wrist stopped him. He felt as if a knife had slit open his flesh. "Who? Which bastard did this to me?" The supervisor was obviously infuriated. As soon as he saw her, he took a few steps back. Gu Shijio moved the stone away from the back of the old man and helped him up. He was very obviously injured, and there was still blood on the corners of his mouth. Tears rolled down his eyes as soon as he saw Gu Shijio. Stone, they had not suffered as much, even in the valley. Tainyo and his men wanted to help, but they were prevented from doing so by the supervisors. These supervisors were harsh. They would beat the villagers at their slightest resistance. Furthermore, their whips were specially made to torture. Every strike would cause a great amount of pain. The supervisors all possessed spiritual power of level 3 and above, so their strength was not to be taken lightly. Tai Dan and his men were strong, but only physically. They stood no chance to rebel against the supervisors. There were a few times where Tai Dan and Tai Nyo tried to fight back to help those villagers in need. As a result, they were all violently caned. Each of them had scars that ran the length of their bodies. Certainly, the villagers did not dominate the quarry. There were dozens of other people around. These people were already used to the whipping. They carried the stones around numbly. The torturous whipping of other men did not bother them. The supervisors had always been arrogant. As soon as they saw another supervisor being bullied, they quickly came with their whips to help. "Who is this wild woman? How dare she hurt our men?" They screamed at Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio was not in the mood to argue with them. Instead, she fixed her gaze on a whip that she wanted to acquire. Utterly surprised, they looked at Gu Shijio with their eyes wide open. Gu Shijio did not explain herself. Instead, she picked up the whip on the ground and started beating the supervisors, each with 5 whips. Every strike was intended to hurt, so all 5 of them started rolling on the ground and warping their faces in pain. Unfortunately for them, they could not even make a sound, as Gu Shijio had sealed their acupuncture points to prevent speech. "Miss, you cannot hurt them. They will put the blame on us. If we die from the beating, they will not be punished." A few men already died because of them. One of the workers put down his load and fearfully told her. All 5 of them looked at her in indignation. Their mouths moved, but nothing could be heard. Nonetheless, being a trained assassin, Gu Shijio could read their lips. She knew what they were saying. Even if they could not do anything to her, they could still release their anger on these innocent workers. Gu Shijio laughed. How could she be the leader of her people if she could not even deal with a few supervisors? She raised her arm and slapped these supervisors on the face. Chapter 2204. Finally, it was a joyful ending. The supervisors got on their feet and picked up their whips. "Bitch, how dare you?" They surrounded Gu Shijio and were ready to give her a lesson. However, before they could swing their whip, a sudden sharp pain stopped them. They felt as if there were countless needles on their skin. Sweat broke out from their forehead rapidly. You cannot use your strength at the moment. The slightest pressure will break the vessels in your arms. If you persist, all your vessels will break. You may proceed with the whipping if you do not intend to keep your arms, Gu Shijio explained. The supervisors were shocked. They started sweating even more. Gu Shijio took a step back with her arms across her chest. "I did not intend to kill you. I do not intend to interrupt your work as a supervisor, either. As long as you keep the whips away, you will be fine." Under the current circumstance, they dared not proceed, even though they were not entirely happy about it. One of them was not willing to submit. "How long will it last?" Gu Shijio showed them 3 fingers. 3 days. One made a guess. "No, 3 years, Gu Shijio said slowly. Their faces sank, and they almost fell to their knees. Gu Shijio said smilingly, "For the next 3 years, you are not allowed to use your spiritual power, which means you will be no different from the workers. Think about it. If your direct superior found out about your condition, would he send you to work as well, or let you continue supervising?" The supervisors looked at her in all seriousness and asked, "What do you really want?" Simple. You can continue your job as supervisor. These people will not tell anyone anything about your injury. In return, you have to treat them better. Certainly, the workers would not tell anyone about it. If a new batch of supervisors came to replace these ones, they would have to suffer again. Hence, they had to find a way to work peacefully with the people here. After the commotion ended, the workers continued to work. They still did their best, but were not pushed beyond their limits. As long as the workers behaved themselves, they would not really care about them. Finally, it was a joyful ending for both parties. Gu Shijio asked Tainyo about the girls who were not around, only to find out that they had been brought to another place. It was a palace of great luxury. The food was splendid. Yiling sat alone at a long table, enjoying his food. There were 18 dishes on the table. Each and every dish was exquisite. Behind him stood two young ladies. They were gently massaging his shoulders and fanning him. His life had been quite free and easy. However, he wanted more. He wanted Gu Shijio, the girl who acted like a wildcat. He was waiting for her to come and beg him for mercy, since he sent the men to do the worst jobs and the women to become prostitutes. He knew that Gu Shijio would not let her people suffer, as she really cared for them. She could only beg him, as there was no other way. He had to make her understand that there was no way that she could resist against his power on his territory. She had to obey him, so her people could have a better life. Chapter 22:05. Plotting against one another at the thought of her people. He could not help but think about Hua Jichuan. The look in his eyes darkened as he proceeded to hold his glass of wine in contemplation. The aged man was no longer in his charming youth. He deserved it. "Governor, the old man is here. He is waiting outside," a voice reported. Yiling was delighted. "Send him to clean my room." Surprised, the servant added, "Governor, the old man seems to be stubborn and unruly. Also, he is old and dirty. I am afraid that he will only dirty your room." Yiling gave him a cold look in the eye. "How dare you go against my order?" The servant dared not say anything more. Promptly, he was ready to leave and do as told. "Let him clean up the mess in the yard. He has to weed the entire garden. Tell him that I will kill him if I find any remaining grass in the premise," Yiling added. "Yes." The servant left. Yiling continued to enjoy his food, but was soon dispirited, so he asked his men to clear the table. "Governor, Miss Stone has requested to see you." Another servant came reporting. Finally, Yiling could not hide his smile and said, "Let her wait for a while." He had to make her know that she was not the one in control. "Yes," the servant answered and left. Delighted, Yiling picked up a piece of meat and was ready to savor it. However, a sudden movement caught his attention. A woman appeared before his eyes all of a sudden. He recognized the icy look in her eyes, as well as the pale pink color of her lips and the beautifully tanned skin of hers. She was none other than Gu Shijio. She stared at Yiling fixedly. "Governor, please forgive me. I cannot wait any longer," Gu Shijio said with an icy tone. There was a complicated look in Yiling's eyes, but he kept his smile. "It does not matter. Since you are here, please have a seat and share the food with me." Hesitantly, Gu Shijio sat down at the table as told. "Great. Thank you, Governor." Yiling asked for another set of cutlery and an empty plate for Gu Shijio. Then, he poured a glass of wine and offered her the drink. "What is the matter? My people can work the worst kinds of jobs that require their physical strength, but not as prostitutes." Gu Shijio finally found Chun Chao and the girls. They were sent to work at a brothel. Gu Shijio managed to threaten the bouncer at the brothel and ask for the release of the girls. However, the pimp had no authority for their release, as the girls were sent to the brothel under the governor's order. If the bounder took the matter into her own hands, the governor would definitely kill her in the most brutal way. Therefore, she would rather die in Gu Zijia's hands rather than the governor's. However, the pimp also told her that the only way for the girl's release was to beg the governor. If Gu Shijio were willing to beg the governor for their release, the pimp would make sure that in the next 2 hours, Chun Chao and the girls would not have to entertain any clients in the brothel. Thus, Gu Shijio came right away. With great pleasure, Yiling took another sip of wine and said, "Under the law of Luo Hua City, for women at the age of 30 or less, unless they possess a certain level of spiritual power that enables them to gather spiritual crystals, they will usually end up either as prostitutes or concubines or even slaves. There's a problem, though. The generals of high reputation only prefer girls with fair skin. The women from your village are generally tanned and rough, so they can only be prostitutes." He made his point fair and clear, with a strong sense of righteousness. Gu Shijio pursed her lips in dismay, for she finally realized how powerful the governor really was in the city. She rose to fill his glass of wine as an act of respect. "Governor, what should I do to make you release them?" Yiling fixed his eyes on her. "You know what to do." Chapter 2206. Plotting against one another, 2. And what is that? Gu Shijio was perplexed. Yiling let out a smile before taking another sip of wine. "Why are you acting innocent? I clearly told you about my terms yesterday." Gu Shijio sighed. "Are you trying to make me your concubine?" Yiling looked at her desperately and said, "That is right. If you agree, I will order for their immediate release and let them do the easiest job." Helplessly, Gu Shijio took another sip of wine while trying to come up with an answer. "Let me think about it." Yiling looked at her hopefully. "Sure, you can think about it, but there is not much time left for you. In another hour, the women will be forced to satisfy the men here. Aren't you concerned that your wife may be jealous of your keen interest in me?" She will not be jealous." Yiling seemed irritated. A sudden idea occurred to him, so he asked, "Do you know a woman called Yun Qingluo?" She was not sure. Without her memories, she definitely did not remember Yun Qingluo. Hence, she gave Yiling a confused look for his sudden question. She answered politely, "I have lost a part of my memory, so I do not recall any woman with such a name." "Why? Does she know me? Where is she now?" Yiling was starting to doubt himself. Gu Shijio looked like a young girl, possibly at the age of 18. Also, she had been trapped in the valley for so long. How could she know Yin Qingluo? Perhaps it was a misunderstanding. There is no need to ask anything more. You must not reveal your real name. Others can address you as Stone. If you become my woman, I can give you the title Beauty Stone. Gu Shijio gritted her teeth in disapproval. She took a look at the sand glass and started making some calculations. A moment later, she responded, "I will not become your concubine." Yiling was surprised by her rejection. "Aren't you worried about the women who are going to become prostitutes?" "They will not become prostitutes. I believe that you will let them all go and treat them well," Gu Shijio answered confidently. Yiling was utterly surprised. "Are you dreaming? You kept saying that you wanted me to become your concubine. Is it because you like me?" "Like?" Yiling's voice was soft and full of doubt. "I have never really liked any woman before. All he wanted to do was to conquer all the beautiful women, so they only belonged to him. Accurately speaking, he did not like these women at all. In fact, he was a little disgusted by them. He wanted to make all the beautiful women suffer to the greatest extent. Therefore, many women had died in his hands. Many of them had only spent one night with him before he killed them off for good. Some lucky ones would be sent to the brothel." Gu Shijio had certainly heard about the stories, so she could tell that he did not like the women at all. He was only a psycho. "If you do not like me, why do you have to force me?" Gu Shijio sounded even more uninterested. "Like I always have, I will always get all the women I desire." Yiling continued scornfully, "You have to marry me. Otherwise, all the women will be tortured and die a painful death." "You would not dare," Gu Shijio teased him. "You have an hour to call for their immediate release and promise that you will never make them suffer again. In your dreams." Yiling remained unbothered. Before he could insult her even more, there was a sharp pain in his abdomen that stopped him from moving. He felt as if he had just been stabbed. He kneeled as a result of the immense pain. Chapter 2207. Plotting against one another, 3. He looked up and said, "Did you just poison me?" He raised his hand and wanted to hurt Gu Shijio. However, as soon as he used his spiritual power, the pain in his body became even more unbearable. Overwhelmed by the pain, he lay on the floor. He tried to use his spiritual power to expel the poison from within, but it only worsened his condition. In the end, he could not use any of his spiritual power. Utterly shocked, he finally felt terrified. Indignant, he shouted at Gu Shijio, "How dare you? How brave of you to poison me! If anything happens to me, Luo Hua City will fall." Gu Shijio looked at him with a lack of interest in the city. "If I cannot make sure that my people are safe, why should I even care about Luo Hua City? I do not care, even if it crumbles." Her response dumbfounded Yiling. "Without Luo Hua City, do you think you can make it out alive? I can make an order now to arrest you and put you to death by dismembering your body." Gu Shijio smiled. Obviously, she did not feel threatened. "You may try. I will now give you 15 minutes to look for me. If you fail, you die." Swiftly, she disappeared. Yiling was completely in shock. Eagerly, he tried to stand up. "Send men to look for Miss Stone as soon as possible." Not more than 3 minutes later, a man came with some news. "Governor, Miss Stone is now at the outskirts of the city. Should we take her in?" Yiling's face sank. Direct an audio message to her and ask her to come back. He could not help but sigh. Not even 3 minutes later, Gu Shijio appeared in front of him right away. "Ow! Have you already agreed to my terms?" Yiling's face was as pale as a sheet. In a brief moment, the lady was able to travel to and fro from the city outskirts. If she really intended to stay away from him, there was no way he could reach her. He demanded for her to give him the antidote. "Give it to me now." "Governor, you have to order for their release first." Gu Shijio then said politely, "Also, you have to promise that you will never put them through the same difficult situation again." Yiling's stomach was extremely painful at that moment. He finally gave in and ordered his men to release the women. After his men left, he looked at Gu Shijio dead in the eye and said, "Are we done?" Gu Shijio smiled and gave him a pill. Yiling quickly swallowed it. A few moments later, the sharp pain in his stomach was finally gone. He sat himself up and looked at Gu Shijio fixedly, who was standing there carefree and leisurely, looking at him. "You are an evil woman." Gu Shijio only smiled at him and said, "I could say the same about you." She turned around and was ready to leave. "Thank you for the exquisite meal. Goodbye." Yiling stared at her back blankly, and a sudden idea occurred to him. With a sudden leap, he lunged towards her in full force, like a hungry wolf aiming at its prey. The lady was too naive to give him the antidote so easily. This time, he had to give her a lesson. Not only that he intended to seize her, but he also wanted to abolish her kung fu once and for all. Then, he would make her his woman. He intended to assault her for the next few days. He knew that Mr. D was in love with Gu Shijio. If he seized her, he could use her to threaten him. It was all a plan in Yiling's head, and it was time to execute it. His spiritual power was already at level 9, which was so much more advanced than Gu Zijia's. She was an easy target for him. Therefore, Yiling went for it. His first strike was a deadly one, for he needed to make sure that he could grab her at once. Before he could touch Gu Shijio on her back, she suddenly took a huge leap forward. Yiling missed her. Chapter 22:08 Plotting Against One Another 4. He was not ready to give up his evil plan, so he aimed another strike at Gu Shijio. However, sharp pain in his body blurred his vision. Before he could reach for her again, he was already rolling on the floor in a painful struggle. Every inch of his body hurt. It felt as though knives were stabbing him all over his body. Casually, Gu Shijio looked at him. "Have you just gone against your words so quickly? Lucky for me that I have a backup plan." "What?" Yiling was already soaked in sweat. "The poison that you had before was only something ordinary. However, the pill that I had just given you is the real deal, which is extremely poisonous," she said calmly. Yiling was speechless. She was really a cunning woman. Gu Shijio lowered her body to see his nervous, sweaty face better. "However, there is nothing to be worried about. The poison will not kill you anytime soon. It will only cause you pain every single day, and for only 1 hour. You have to bear with it just a while." Its real effect will only come to light 3 days from now. It will slowly destroy your organs from within, and once it is done, it will move to your skin, inch by inch. Yiling was sweating even more. Gu Shijio put a small bottle next to him. This is the antidote for the next 3 days. When the pain becomes unbearable, take one. However, it will only reduce its effect temporarily to ease your pain. Without the real antidote, you are still going to die in an excruciating way. Yiling gritted his teeth in extreme frustration. Smilingly, Gu Shijio added, I'm going out to run some errands. I will be back in 3 days. If I see that all my people are good, I will give you the real antidote. If anything happens to any of them, there is nothing I can do but to let you die. She turned around and disappeared. Fueled by anger, Yiling's body kept trembling, but he could only do as told. He did not want to die anytime soon. Moreover, he could not risk letting anyone know that his spiritual power had been disabled, especially Madame Yun. Otherwise, she surely would abandon him as one of her closest alliance. Gu Shijio was hiding on one of the branches in the woods. She held her dress tightly. She initially planned to lay low in the city for 3 days, but if she did, Yiling would definitely try everything that he could to plot against her. The antidote was all that he wanted right now. He had his men located in every corner of the city. It would be too much work for her to avoid his men. It was also possible that Yiling would use her people to pressure her to give him the antidote. Moreover, he was poisoned, so he would not risk his life looking for her. The rare poison was a gift from Di Fui, which is actually a poison that she had created before. It was considered as a celestial item from heaven, so the antidote was not accessible in the lower bound. She was not concerned that Yiling would find the cure. With one hand on the trunk as her support, Gu Shijio tried hard to look into the distance and wondered where Di Fui had been. She switched on her directed audio spell, and it flickered a few times, but there was no one to pick it up on the other side. Puzzled, she could not help but wonder why he ignored her call. He was probably busy fighting the ferocious beasts in a violent battle. She did not try to contact him again. Her directed audio would only prevent him from concentrating while he was in battle. She did not want to be a distraction to him. Hence, she decided to wait as she believed that he would be able to finish the beast off in an hour. She should call him later, then. She leaned against the trunk and started to meditate. About 2 hours later, she tried to call him again. However, the result was the same. He did not pick up. Gu Shijio was bewildered. Chapter 2209. After all, we are engaged since their directed audio spells worked like a phone. The screen would display that there was a missed call from her. Therefore, Di Fui would definitely see the missed call and return her call when he was available. Was he caught in some danger, so much so that he could not break free? The more she thought about it, the more she believed so. There was a mix of anxiety and regret. She should have followed him instead of letting him go alone. She should have persuaded him. Luo Hua City was surrounded by a vast area of wooded and hilly lands. In the depths of the forest region, there were all kinds of wild animals. The spiritual crystal that Di Fui was looking for was a Class 1 gem, so he surely had to venture into the deepest part of the woods, somewhere where human activity was really scarce. The Class 1 beasts would only exist in the depths of the forest. That would be at least 1,000 miles from the city. Gu Shijio sat with her legs crossed on the tree, not knowing what to do. She knew that he was indeed in the depths of the mountains, but his specific location was unclear. The only thing that she could do was to wait. She continued to contact him once every hour, but every call ended in the same disappointment. She spent the entire day on the tree, waiting for him to answer her call. From dawn to dusk, she continued to try. One day had gone by. Gu Shijio had never thought that waiting could be such a torturing and helpless experience. Something must have happened to him. Otherwise, he would not ignore her call for so long, for he knew that she would be worried. Gu Shijio could not keep waiting any longer. She was ready to rush into any direction and begin the search. All of a sudden, she recalled a conversation in her head. If you're looking for someone, you can use one of his or her closest items to activate your spiritual power and sense where your loved one truly is, or at least the general location. Does it work? Can I use my spiritual power to find the exact location? I want to teleport there immediately. You can use it when your power is at level 7. Level 7? Do I have to be so advanced? How long do I need to reach that level? Why are you so anxious about it? Your spiritual power is already at level 6. After a while, you should be able to do it. Even at level 3, you can tell the general location of the person. So you're saying that I can already use this power at level 3? At level 3, you can basically tell the general location of the person. The difference will only be within a few miles. Celestial Masters, what level have you achieved so far? The most advanced level. No wonder you can always locate me so easily. Be patient. I am waiting for the day when you are good enough to catch me. I will not try to catch you. I will only try to avoid you. That is depressing. What makes you want to avoid me? I have been so good to you. I have never felt so. I am Celestial Masters, who surrounds you every single day to help you out of your most desperate situations. Little Shijio, you cannot be so ungrateful. All right, I have no time to waste. Please tell me how to advance my power. Try to say something nice to me. What should I say? Call me your fiancé. After all, we are engaged. The conversation was something that she remembered from a very long time ago. She did not know why it suddenly occurred to her at this very moment. Gu Shijio stood still on the branch, but felt weak all of a sudden. Her heart started to ache. Breathlessly, she started to gasp for air. Even though Gu Shijio managed to hear everything clearly, it felt as though the voice in her head was very far away from her, like it had been somehow hidden from her. This time, she could even tell that it was a conversation between a man and a woman. The woman sounded like herself, but who was the man? Who could it be? From the conversation, it seemed like the two were a couple. If that were the case, could Celestial Masters be Di Fui? Di Fui told her that they had known each other since young and were engaged for a long time. Also, her kung fu used to be much more advanced than his during her time in the upper bound. However, what she inferred from the conversation was that the relationship between the couple seemed to have bloomed only after a series of exchanges. Celestial Masters also seemed to be much stronger than Gu Shijio. In fact, he was the one who taught her. He seemed to be both her master and her partner. The two situations did not match up. Did Di Fui lie to her? Or was she having an affair with Celestial Masters? Perhaps it was something that Di Fui was unaware about. Strangely, the Celestial Masters character in her head had clearly said that they were engaged. How many times exactly had she been engaged? Helplessly, she placed her face in both her palms. She was unable to believe that she was that shameless and licentious woman who had multiple affairs at the same time. Perhaps she had broken off the engagement with Di Fui before knowing Celestial Masters. However, she was not sure about what had happened between them that made her change her mind and return to Di Fui instead. Many different speculations emerged, and she could barely get her head around the possibilities anymore. After giving it more thought, the one that she believed to be the most reasonable was that before she lost her memory, she was actually in love with Celestial Masters. Di Fui liked her, so he took the chance to take advantage of her loss of memory and tricked her into a relationship. The last speculation made her heart ache. She had only talked about Celestial Masters once last night, and Di Fui was immediately quiet. Could it be true? Even without her memory, her logical reasoning remained excellent. At this very instant, the many possibilities seemed to connect all at once. The truth was about to resurface. Nonetheless, Gu Shijio did not want to believe in the truth. Di Fui would not do something so cruel. He would not be so heartless. She must have overthought the entire situation. The clan leader once told her that she had the habit of overthinking. Perhaps she was a bit too paranoid. It was not a good habit to keep, and she needed to change. He has been so good to me, and I feel the same about him. Every moment spent with him has been very heartwarming, like a support that I can finally trust upon. No one has ever made me feel this way. I have to trust him. I cannot picture him in such a negative way. She tried to calm her anxious heart down. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click www. Web Novel. Calm for visiting. Growl. An animal was screaming from a distance, loud enough to shake the tree that she was standing on. She took a deep breath to clear her tangled mind. She could not afford to linger on the useless thoughts at this very moment. The search for Di Fui was of the utmost importance. Gu Shijio tried to utilize her spiritual power to locate Di Fui. Her loss of memory had prevented her from recalling the technique she possessed, but she believed that she was able to remember if she stayed focused. If she tried hard, she might be able to remember everything. She closed her eyes to try and recall, but another growl from afar interrupted her. A sudden idea occurred to her. The growl came from the Chinese alligator. Could he be there? Chapter 22:11. Overwhelmed with a sense of emptiness, Gu Shijio teleported. Numerous tree branches were all shattered, and dust filled the air, blotting out the sky and the sun. A red fog slowly rolled up into the sky, covering the giant Chinese alligator within a cloud of dust. It was gigantic, almost the same as the first one that Gu Shijio had encountered. A man in a purple robe seemed to be moving around the Chinese alligator. Due to his quick movements, it almost seemed like he was flying. Both parties were currently engaged in a violent battle. The red fog was too thick, which prevented Gu Shijio from seeing clearly. Furthermore, since the man she had seen was moving very fast, she could not identify him with certainty. There were only two men that she knew who dressed in purple and possessed excellent kung fu. One was the psycho governor, the other was Di Fui. The psycho governor was poisoned. Hence, he must be occupied with the search for the antidote, ruling him out. Hence, it could only be Di Fui. Given this revelation, Gu Shijio teleported 4 consecutive times to get closer to the man. She saw his figure and shouted out loud, "Di Fui!" The man in purple robes turned around and looked at her abruptly while circling the beast. The brief moment was enough for Gu Shijio to confirm the identity of the man. She was shocked. The man was not Di Fui. It was a strikingly handsome young man. He seemed well-groomed, as if he came from a noble background. That was her first impression of the man, at least. She was drawn by his exquisite and refined appearance and was curious about his identity. Gu Shijio somehow felt that the man looked familiar. Was there another man in her life? Gu Shijio was not only disappointed, but also overwhelmed with a sense of emptiness. Her disrupted memories have certainly affected her state of mind. After the brief moment where their eyes met, the man called out loud, "Shijio." Gu Shijio was taken by surprise. Did the handsome man know her? Although he looked familiar, she had no idea who was calling out to her. Was he one of the hunting experts from Luo Hua City? Had they met in the crowd before? However, the way he addressed her was unusually friendly. If they had only met once, he would not call her that way. Overwhelmed with questions, Gu Shijio ended up staying still. This Chinese alligator was very arrogant. A possible reunion between its prey was not something it could tolerate, so it let out a long growl and launched an even more deadly attack. The slight distraction almost cost the man his life. Luckily, he reacted quickly enough and retreated about 30 feet away. The man and the beast engaged in another fierce exchange of attacks, as Gu Shijio stood there observing the fight. After a while, she could not help but heave a sigh. The man's kung fu was extraordinary. His spiritual power must have achieved at least level 9, which was almost comparable to Di Fui's. She continued to observe the man and realized that he looked nothing at all like the local people from the city, so he must be from a different place. Was he a friend from heaven? If Di Fui could descend from above to look for her, someone else could have done the same too. Meeting up with an old acquaintance in a foreign world made her feel very fortunate, especially given the harsh conditions of this place. Fate must have brought them together. Although Gu Shijio was still concerned about Di Fui's whereabouts, she did not plan to leave anytime soon. Chapter 22:12. A fire at the city gate had brought disaster to the fish in the moat perhaps. This man had seen Di Fui before. After all, Di Fui was probably a well-known person in heaven. It was possible that the two gentlemen could be friends. At that point in time, Gu Shijio felt like she really needed a friend. After all, the shared path with Di Fui tended to be a little lonely sometimes. If they could have a friend from heaven join the adventure, it would be a wonderful journey. The man in front of Gu Shijio right now had very good control of his sword. Every strike had power in it, and every move was swift. A series of attacks bombarded the Chinese alligator in a continuous flurry, showcasing a dazzling display of powerful moves. After a brief moment, Gu Shijio could finally confirm that he was a man from heaven. The way he carried his sword was very familiar to Gu Shijio. Could they be from the same association? Was the man her senior or junior apprentice? Gu Shijio was not eager to get herself involved in the fight. After all, it was all her speculation. She had to be more cautious in case the man was actually an enemy of hers. Nonetheless, after observing the battle for some time, Gu Shijio quickly realized that the man did not know how to take down the beast. He was merely concentrating his energy on trying to slash its skin open. Luckily for him, his slashes seemed to impact the beast. However, this Chinese alligator was quite agile. Most of the time, it was able to avoid the man's attacks. Also, its skin was thick enough to protect itself despite the bleeding. It was going to be an uphill battle for the man if he continued to fight in this way. After almost an hour, Gu Shijio noticed that he only managed to leave 4 scars on the beast's body. The amount of blood from each wound was plentiful, enough to fill an entire basin. However, the blood loss was nothing once compared to its gigantic body. Instead of being wounded, the beast was triggered to a crazier extent. Its eyes were flashing with even brighter beams of red light. She finally understood why a single hunt for Chinese alligator would usually take a group of 20 men to seize it. They even had to use a net. Apparently, they were unaware of the specific technique to fight against the beast, so they could only seize it with their physical strength. The man's kung fu was obviously excellent. However, according to his progress in the battle, he would take at least another 100 strikes to take the beast down. Gu Shijio looked at the sky. It was already midnight. She tried to use her directed audio spell to get in touch with Di Fui, but to no avail. She tried hard to recall how to locate him using her power, but a sudden warning pulled her back from her thoughts. Shijio, be careful. Gusts of violent winds were coming toward her. Gu Shijio looked up, only to realize that Chinese alligator was already launching a deadly strike at her, like a fast train that she was unable to avoid. This situation was perfectly summed up in a saying, a fire at the city gate had brought disaster to the fish in the moat. This time, Gu Shijio could not stand at the side as a spectator. With swift teleportation, she knew that she had to avoid the head-on strike first. In another move, she retrieved her sword and aimed it at its eye. She wanted to attack Chinese alligator's weak point first, but another idea suddenly occurred to her. She waved her sword and started to make random cuts on the beast. She saw the man's moves, so what she did at the moment was actually a repetition of what the man had done. When she first started using the moves, she was not quite familiar with the sequence. However, she soon mastered the method. It came to her naturally, and she was now certain that she and the man were somehow linked. The man proceeded to join her in the battle. Shijio, be careful. This thing is poisonous, he reminded. Chapter 22:13. We can use it together, Gu Shijio answered the man briefly, but while doing so, felt a little guilty. She refused to help earlier because she could not trust him completely, as she was worried that he might be a potential enemy. She had to observe him for a while to know him better. In the end, she seemed to have overthought the entire situation. With Gu's Zygius involvement, the battle became a sure-win situation. Approximately an hour later, Gu Shijio was finally able to hurt Chinese alligator in his right eye. The move was very tricky. It went through its right eye, cut through its brain, and went straight into its left socket. The Chinese alligator's left eye was its true weakness, but often guarded it more carefully. Gu's Zygius sword only managed to cut through its left eyeball from within, so I looked perfectly fine on the outside. The Chinese alligator collapsed to the ground, like a mountain that had just been razed to the ground. Finally, Gushijio pulled out her sword. She panted heavily, trying to catch her breath. The beast's head was enormous, and she had to put in a lot of effort to kill the creature. The man seemed exhausted too. His face was pale. Nonetheless, before choosing to rest, he took a swift look around the Chinese alligator's dead body to observe the deadly wound that Gu Shijio had caused to the beast. Shijio, did you hit its weak spot? Has it always been its right eye? Gu Shijio dismissed him with a smile. Perhaps. I was hitting it randomly like a blind cat catching a dead mouse in a dark room. Before identifying the man's background, Gu Shijio did not wish to tell him the secret. Difui once told her to be more cautious of the people around her. It was hard to know their intention, so she had to be careful. The man continued to study the wound. Let's retrieve the crystal, Gu Shijio quickly demanded. She leaped over the Chinese alligator's head and slashed its head wide open with her sword. Then, she went on to retrieve the lustrous red crystal hidden in its skull. It was a Class 2 crystal, and Gu Shijio removed it very quickly. The way she retrieved the crystal was very chaotic, leaving a huge mess behind, thus concealing the correct way of extracting the gem. The man did not intend to fight for the gem with her. Shijio, I am proud of you. Are you going to Luo Hua City? Gu Shijio did not intend to keep the spiritual crystal for her own. After all, the man was the first to discover this Chinese alligator. Hesitantly, she threw the spiritual crystal at him. This is yours. You should have it. The man was shocked. Shijio, one spiritual crystal can guarantee the entry of 20 men into the city. We can use it together. Haven't you been to Luo Hua City? Where have you been? Gu Shijio took a look at the sword that the man was holding. It was the three-edged sword, which was obviously meant for killing the Chinese alligator. The rough edges were explicitly designed to wound the beast. Gu Shijio had seen the swords that Zhao Fengxing and his men used. Their swords were more or less the same, with the same three edges. However, the particular sword from the man seemed to be better. From there, Gu Shijio could tell that the man had been here for quite a while. The man responded with a tight smile. It is a long story. I used to reside in Fanyi City, but the governor was really mean. He did not allow me in the city, so I had to flee and try my luck at a new life in Luo Hua City. I have no companions, so I usually hunt alone. I did not expect to see you here. Shijio, this is really destiny. After your disappearance at the Yaoqi Tavern, I have been searching for you everywhere. My effort is not in vain. I finally found you today. Let's talk. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.